Welcome! My name is Elena Kundro. I am the host of the Vitality Hub podcast, a space to embrace all parts of yourself, align with your truth, and find new, graceful ways to navigate life's challenges. Over the past 12 years, I've been on my own healing journey of integrating my traumatic childhood and turning my illnesses into wellness. Along the way, I've earned a degree in health sciences, trained in various coaching and therapeutic modalities. And since 2018, I've been blessed to be helping clients invite more vitality into all areas of their lives. Hence the name of the show, Vitality Hub. So my goal with this podcast is to introduce you to tools that can help you create a life that you truly love. Thanks for tuning in and let the show begin. Lovely. Hello and welcome. Today on the show, I have Heather, who I've gotten her to meet and get to know a little bit while I was still in Bali. And I did a few sessions with her. She's doing energy healing, and I was amazed by the intuition that she has and by the connection to the divine higher realms, and like really the guidance has shown me a lot that I didn't know. Even though I've been doing so much work with other modalities, there was something that I was still missing. And that's why I was so excited to bring Heather to this podcast to talk about energy healing on ourselves. Heather, do you have something to say about what's your intention for this podcast? Why would people tune in?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I'm super excited to be here. I feel like energy healing is this thing that we feel on a day-to-day basis, but we have no idea what's happening. And so we have no modality or tool or knowledge of how to create a space for ourselves to feel lighter, more connected, more energetic. We carry things in our energy field. You could say aura, whatever you'd like to call it. We carry things around us, inside of us, that can be from so many reasons. They can be from trauma, childhood things, from something a bully said to you, from emotions, from our blocks to the earth, to the higher realms, from past lives. There's just so many layers of things that we can carry in our energy field that can actually block us from calling in abundance, block us from calling in the things that we want to align with in this life. And not just block us, but like weigh us down. Do you ever just be like, wow, I feel so heavy, like on my shoulders, like I just, or like my stomach just feels like there's a rock inside of it. It's these things. Everything is made up of energy, atoms. Everything's made up of vibrating atoms. These vibrating atoms are just energy. And so it's like teaching people how to feel that on themselves and remove it is one of my big passions for sure.
I love that. And I already told you this when you told me that you're a psychic and an energy healer when we first met. I was like, cool, like whatever that means. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, another woo-woo, something like, not like in that judgmental way, but like, okay, I don't really I don't have that gift. That's something that people have. I don't even want to get deeper into that. But happily, we connected and we got to explore that. And along the way, I realized actually, it's not something so out there. Everybody has that. Everybody has the ability to do energy healing on themselves. And that's why I really want to bring you on today to give us some tools how to do that on ourselves. Yeah, is it something you would like to start with, share with us, some information that you feel is important for someone who's not familiar with energy healing, or they think it's for the special ones?
Yeah. I'm a strong believer that we all have these abilities. We can all tap into so many different things, whatever we want to tap into. And for me, energy manifests as like a physical feeling. Like I feel it, like there's also what's called like an energetic cord, a cording. So it's like somebody that you know, or even just somebody that you were talking to at the restaurant. You can have like an energetic cord together and you can be like sending energy back and forth, feeling each other. And so it's just eventually it gets so much because you have all these cords and this weight. And if you've never cleansed yourself and it's not a regular practice, then it just builds throughout your life. And it leads to a lot of like kind of feeling off balance, feeling like overwhelmed, feeling like you don't know what's yours. You don't know what's your emotion. There's people pleasing. It's like you almost feel other people's emotions and desires from you more than you can feel yourself. And so it's so incredible to bring this knowledge to people and share with them that everybody has the ability. to feel this. I'm sure a lot of people are already relating to the things I'm talking about, like feeling that anxiety, that overwhelm, that like feeling like your mom is like attached to you and sending you vibes and you're like, why is this? Or feeling like, yeah, there's like work, like you're like, I can feel the heaviness of my job like on my body, that is actually energy that you're carrying. And so not only can we all just naturally feel that, but we all can do something about it. And it's actually quite simple. And it's just really with our intention, the power of our thoughts, and not just our thoughts, but like turning that thought into an emotion and an intention, feeling it. They're so powerful. Our thoughts create our beliefs just we can do so much with. And so by just the power of intention of being like, okay, I remove this, you literally can. And so it's about teaching you like what can be stuck on you. I like to teach like how to actually remove it. And then once you remove it, what do you do with it? And then let people try. Like they don't have to, I always say, like, you don't have to believe me, just test on yourself. Like go sit and try it and see how it feels for you. And people feel a huge shift, an instant difference. And they're like, wow.
Yeah.
And then take that practice with them.
Exactly what happened to me. So, but before that, I want to touch on that, it builds up to everyone throughout our lives. But the thing is, like a lot of people do unconsciously practices to release that, like even dancing, showering, grounding, singing, humming, tap, like anything. Like we don't, because before, I wasn't really into energy healing or anything, but I was always like just naturally doing like those practices of the body to cleanse, maybe without, sometimes I would do the intentionality of like cleansing all the energy. I remember like 7 years ago, one of my friends said, like, when you come back from work, whatever, just when you undress yourself, imagine how all of the energies, everything that you picked up during the day, you undress that with your clothes and you leave that. And I remember when I was trying it out the first time, yeah, it was like actually like 7 years ago. It was a long time ago. And I was undressing myself with this intention. And I was like, whoa, I feel so much better. But the thing is, I was undressing myself every single day, but just because I had the intention of undressing and leaving everything behind made the whole difference. So, my point with this is that it's not something magical. You don't have to have any magical powers, and it may sound woo woo, but it's not woo woo at all. It's like very practical. Um, and for me, when I did the session with you the first time, and you connected me to the sky and to the earth, that I put blocks on my head and on my feet not to feel so much because I was afraid of the power of the connection. And we unblocked that. And I remember the 3 days after that, I was just like, wow, I feel so much connected, so much more connected, even though I've been doing this work for so many years, So, yeah. And the power of it is to experience it. So even if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, whatever, another, woo-woo stuff, or there's some skepticism in you, which is good. We should always keep some skepticism in ourselves. But just to try that, just have this little experiment of yours, what it's like to shower and to have the intention of leaving all of the like things that don't serve you behind and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I love that undressing. I'm gonna have to try that some. It's just fun to, it can just be things that you do in your day-to-day life too, and you just put the intention behind it. And I think too, yeah, like either people think it's woo-woo or they've never experienced or even heard of it, of like how we carry and like layer energy on top of ourselves. And so it's just that simple knowledge. It's you can place a practice in so many different parts of your day. Like you're saying, taking a shower, water is so cleansing. Um, and not only is it amazing to take everything off because you're just like, wow, like it almost feels like all like I got like a facial or something, and like all my pores are like my body are just like open, and I'm like, oh, I can just like feel myself. Like everything feels clear. I feel like I can breathe. Like it's an interesting feeling to describe, but I'm sure people can feel it for themselves. But also it's like then when you learn that you can also bring energy into yourself, like it's not just about like, oh, I'm going to take these blocks off, but like you're saying, like, bringing energy in from the sky, from the universe, bringing it in from the earth, filling yourself up. You can choose any type of energy. I like to fill myself up with the energy of love. I'm like, and it just feels amazing. Like I almost feel like my cells like thanking me. They're like nourished. And so we can actually, it's like a cup of coffee. You can like fill yourself up, give yourself energy, and give yourself an emotion too, almost in a way. It's like if, we're carrying all these heavy emotions in our energy field and we, send them away, we remove them, we can replace it too. that's something that I really love to talk about is it's not just about removing, it's that you want to refill that space so that something else just doesn't randomly fill it. And you get to choose what you want that to be. And again, it's just something
Yeah.
fun to play with.
Well, in this like removing of the blockages, I also want to always acknowledge that all the emotions we're feeling are valid and like they're there for a reason. And coming from internal family systems model, you know that as well, how important it is to actually give space for whatever is there and then it naturally dissolves. It's just that sometimes we are carrying something that's not even ours. So I think when it
Yeah.
comes to in IFS, we call it, the burdens that are from ancestors or from another unattached burdens, that's when we can also give voice to see what was the reason for attaching and then cleansing it. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I think there can be
Yeah.
very big division of like, okay, let's cleanse. I'm feeling bad now. I'm removing it, and actually, people unconsciously can actually strengthen all of those emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that in because it's such an important, incredible point. And the thing is, too, is that if we remove things, if we don't get down to why it's there, like if it's an emotion, if we don't actually give the emotion space to exist, and to understand it and to hold it and to be with it, then it's just going to manifest right back in your energy field. You're going to carry that weight right back on you again. And the same thing of like whenever I teach people how to cleanse their own energy, I always suggest to follow your own intuition. Like I can explain all day, but I totally am a believer that like everyone's intuition is their best teacher, is their best guide. It's like is what's meant for you. And so make it an intuitive practice of like what feels good for you. Um, and when it comes to like removing things, I personally usually just remove everything because if it's meant for me, it's going to come right back. Like a connection with the best friend, I'm going to like instantly record with them the moment I see them again or think of them or come in contact with them again, but it's going to be a lot lighter. There's not going to be like all these past things that are still moving. And also, it's almost impossible to remove especially like coming back to the emotions, like if you haven't sat with it and given it space, you can take it off for like 5 seconds, but it's going to instantly start to manifest. So never in a million years would I ever say like just shove your emotions away, because it's just never going to work. And also, our emotions are incredible. We're meant to have every single one of them. They're all have such a purpose. And you taught me like through the IFS sessions how absolutely life-changing it is to sit with them and be with them and witness them, give them love and intention. It's like, wow, it's such an opposite of what we think, or at least what I was taught as a child of like, oh, ignore them, push them away, act like they're not there. But actually, if you do the opposite, if you greet them and you love them and you hold space for them, it's like you get this incredible gift where they get to integrate back into your body and they kind of rest and you get to live your life through your higher self again. And it's like, what a
Yeah.
gift. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, no,
What
thank you. That's
resists
very,
persists.
I love it. Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So let's say someone already did their inner work, they presenced all that's there, anxiety, fear, guilt, shame, jealousy, whatever is there, they presenced it. But, it's been, well, in my experience and working with my clients, I always see that when you actually presence it, when you truly meet with it, it transforms. So I'm not talking about those kind of emotions. I'm talking about a life stage. I've seen friends going through a really difficult breakups or really struggling with their business, with their direction in life, and they're like, you know what, I'm just stuck in this, and no amount of like you can feel the stuckness, but like at some point you have to get yourself out of there,
mhm.
get back to your true essence, because well, actually, that's the first part of the presencing. You cannot presence while you're in the emotion. You have to come to your true self to presence whatever there is. But let's say they did the work and they want to move into a lighter stage, lighter phase. Yeah, what would you say is the next best steps for them, and when to know when is the best to apply those modalities, when it's not using that as an escapism from the struggle?
Yeah, absolutely. No, great questions because I think that it's so interesting. Whenever I'm working with somebody and doing a healing for them, I always preface with like, you are in control. Like you have free will. This is your choice. Like I'm not going to remove anything without your permission. And I'm never going to like I would give a recommendation, but I'm never going to there's nothing wrong with us wanting to keep that connection. Maybe we're not ready to let it go. And there's a reason we're not ready to let it go because we haven't learned what we're meant to learn, or because, our heart is still seeking something out of that. And so for doing it on yourself, again, I'm 100% am like going to your intuition. And if it's something that you feel like, you struggle to connect with, or you want like more of an answer than that, or you want to make sure you're not bypassing, you're not like, pushing it away or something like that. It's about, I think, really not having judgment of yourself and giving yourself space to be everything. Like we're not this, I think, idea that we have of being perfect and being like, okay, I should be healed and I need to move that. And that's actually not necessarily the best thing for us. It's like if I remember, my last breakup, being aware that I needed to detach from my ex-partner, but I wasn't ready for a little while. And I fully just held space for myself because of that. I respected myself. I was like, this would actually hurt really bad to fully detach, and then I'd start to have the emotions of just deep loneliness and like regret and sadness and like missing him. And so keeping that energetic cord, but I also think that with respect, making sure that I'm not sending him anything, I'm not sending him resentment or anger, it's just more of a comfort for me until I fully feel like I'm ready to do it, to release out of love for myself and love for the other person, not because I'm trying to be hard on myself or shame or guilt myself into doing it. And same for the other person, not because I'm mad at them and I'm like, get away from me. Um, I think there's two different like types of ways to remove things from our energetic field. And if it's like a connection, a cord with like a living person, a living being, I always say you want to send that back with love and gratitude because I think it's just a baseline, genuine, loving practice. Like if we're imagine if somebody sent you something with like hate and anger, like you're going to feel that. And that's so intrusive and exhausting. Also, the moment you were to feel that, you get that anger and that resentment back, you're going to instantly like reach out to them and be like, just like you came to my mind and it felt really intense, or you're going to start to feel angry about this random anger that you feel from them. And it's almost like you're perpetuating more pain and more energetic cording because then now the other person feels like you just smacked them and they're thinking of you and they're upset that you just energetically smacked them and they're going to send you weird energy and then the cord is right
Well,
back.
well, mostly they're not aware of it, but they're like that influences it. Because I really notice whenever I practice it with like even I did this crazy thing on an airplane. I was flying from Bali to Europe, and behind me sat a girl, and she didn't let me pull my seat back. And at first I was like, "You, how dare you? Like you're such a pain in the," and and then I'm like, wait, I'm sending her all of this energy. Of course she's gonna be now in the fight because she'll want to resist. And then I started sending her like kind of loving energy and manifesting that like my dream outcome that she's like, you can put your seat back. And within like 20 minutes, she's like, yeah, you can put it back. And I was like, it worked because I was sending her that energy of like, so it's crazy, but yeah, like, people can try it. So how do you do it? You just visualize it, or you write it down, or you just.
So I am definitely a visual person. I see energy visually. I have clairvoyance, but I think that you don't like I think we all clairvoyance is just a fancy word. We all have these abilities. We all have these things. It's just our normal senses a little more heightened. But beyond that, it doesn't even matter if you're feeling like you're seeing things or not. It's about like you want to first kind of identify it. Like what are you feeling? Are you feeling like and also what's on your mind? Are you like, oh man, work is just so stressing me right now? Okay. I like to close my eyes. You can do it however you want. Close my eyes. I also like to use my hands. It just kind of heightens the intention. We also have chakras in our hands, which are energetic vortexes. So that also makes me feel like it heightens it even more. It's really about the intention, right? So, like, okay, work is really stressing me. Okay, where do I feel work physically, like in me, on me, around me? I'm like, oh, I feel it like here. Okay, I'm just gonna like lift that off of me. I'm gonna like really, with intention and belief, be like, I am removing the energy of that off of me. And if it's like just the full idea of work, then I like to send it into the earth's core, the lava core to be recycled. I'm like, I trust you, Mother Earth. Like you take it and recycle it for me. You send it back to wherever it needs to go. If it's like, okay, my boss is really stressing me out, then I'm gonna send his energetic cord or his like her like energy back with love and gratitude. And it's literally just feeling like where on me, okay, like oh, I feel like something's blocking my forehead. I'm gonna just maybe I can't figure out what it is. I just feel like there's like a block here, or there's just something that feels weird, feels off. I don't feel my normal self. I'm just gonna remove it, send it to the earth to be recycled, and just keep doing that. Sometimes I will genuinely sit with it for a while. I usually will sit in like a meditative position. You can do it however you want. You can do it at a restaurant. You can do it like in your bed. You can do it on a walk. And sometimes I'll focus on like, okay, people, like who's corded to me energetically. And I'll just notice people are just coming to my mind, their names. And so I'm like, send that back with love and gratitude, send that. And I'm just like, like very quickly. But you can take as much time as you want. Or if I'm, doing kind of just a mixture, I'm open to just what do I feel in this moment? Sometimes too, I don't like, I'm like, I feel heaviness, but I don't know what it is. So I'm kind of just like, okay, I'm going to remove all of this heaviness. I feel like I'm putting stress on myself. I'm going to send that away, send that to the earth. I feel like this person that I saw at the cafe that like said something weird to me, I'm going to send that back with love and gratitude. And I'm just going to keep going. And I'm going to notice that I feel lighter and lighter and lighter. And I'll just keep going until I decide to stop, until I decide that I'm like, okay, I feel good. Um, Also, it's really great to send attention into the body too. Sometimes we are so used to feeling our physical body that we forget that we can actually shift it as well. It's like we're not used to tuning into the physical things of like, okay, what feels around us? We're so used to tuning into our physical body, but it's like, okay, maybe my stomach just feels like there's a rock in it. It's like, I'm going to try to like remove that with my hands. And you're like, oh, I'm going to just energetically like pull that out and send it into the earth. Or I have a heartache from, a like somebody in the past had said something to me that was a good friend and then no longer is, I'm going to remove that energy, send them back with love and gratitude. Or I feel like maybe my heart's hardened. Like maybe I feel numb. Numbness is a feeling too. I'm like, oh, I feel like numb in there. Like, okay, maybe I'm just going to send my heart attention, just my presence, my love, which I know is kind of not quite, but a little similar of the IFS of like, okay, what do I feel in the body? Giving it your attention and allowing it to tell you what's happening. Um, and if it's like, okay, I don't, and the biggest thing that I've found with this is that we doubt ourselves. We instantly stop because we're like, I can't do that. Or we feel something, we sense something, we maybe even see something in our imagination. And we instantly are like, that's not true. That can't be it. Or we just like, we almost just tell ourselves that we can't possibly do this. And therefore, we ignore the fact that we are literally doing it. It's like something comes into our imagination. I'm like, oh, I see my cat. That's a bad example, but stay with me here. Like, oh, my cat came to my mind. And I'm like, I disregard it because I'm like, oh, I'm just must have been thinking about my cat, or I'm just imagining my cat. It's like, it's hard to just instantly believe in ourselves in this way, but just try it. Just test it. What would it just the first thing that comes to you, feeling wise, imagination wise, seeing, which I would also say is sight, like thoughts, just whatever the first things that come to you, just test it out, removing those. And like, how do you feel? That's my favorite one to work with people when I do workshops is like doing these things as like play, being like, I'm just going to test it out. I'm just going to play it. But then note, how do I feel? Like take a moment to reflect. Do I feel differently? Um, and then after that, usually I do after I remove things, but you can do it whenever you need. I'm like, okay, now I want to call energy in. It's like now I remove this rock off my shoulders of like expectations and I cleared work out of my stomach and things like that. Or I took my mom off my face because like bless her, but she loves to be all up in my business. So she's always like right there. So I'm like, okay, remove all these things. Maybe I feel like an old friend has like is like I don't know, like has like is like trying to block me. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna remove that energy. Um, and then you have all this space around you. It's almost like you've created space now, which feels amazing, and that's great. But the really incredible thing is then you can fill it with something. So I love to imagine white light coming down from heaven, the universe, the clouds, whatever you relate to feels good to you, and allowing that to just like fill your space, nourish your cells deeply. Any part of like, if you're feeling like you're having a stomach ache, allowing it to go in and nourish your stomach ache. And again, just play, just test it out. Notice if you feel differently. You can ask the earth, like if you really feel like you're connected to the earth, which I think we all are, but again, to each their own. I will like ask the earth to bring energy up into my body to ground me. And that really helps bring me in the present moment. There's this beautiful thing that kind of happens when I connect with earth energy of I'm just all of a sudden like, whoa, I'm like in the moment again. I'm not thinking about the future or the past. Like I'm sure you've noticed we were just talking about this, like putting your hands in sand or walking barefoot in the grass. It's like you feel like brought into the present moment. And so you can also just do that sitting here in the house in the chair by connecting to the energy of Mother Earth. You can also align your frequency with an emotion. I love to align my frequency with love. Like, what does it feel like to just love everything? And just imagine, play, see what it feels like. And then just notice how, like, your body literally tingles and feels differently. And so it's just fun to play with. Yeah.
How you, I didn't want to stop you, but you said so many things. I'm like, okay, how do I remember all of that? So one
I
thing you
can
mentioned
simplify.
about people doubting themselves of like, do I really see this? Do I know this? And it's totally valid because there has been definitely instances where, people talked themselves into imagining something, of course. There was this one situation where a woman kept like educating herself about sexual trauma. She went to all kind of therapists, and then she went to one like regression therapist or something, and she actually saw how her dad sexually assaulted her when she was a child. She remembered that, but she actually didn't. She actually just like kind of talked herself into this whole remembering because of all of the information and all of the therapy that she's been doing before that, and because of the therapist who has seen a lot of those symptoms that the woman was appearing to have sexual trauma. So it's kind of like definitely there is that skepticism, but
Yeah.
a lot of times when it doesn't really touch like that significant kind of situation in our lives, to test it out on simple things to get clearer intuition and to see the signs in my sessions, my IFS therapy sessions. Whenever I guide through visualization using hypnotherapy, people so many times say, I don't know if I'm imagining this, like this is, I don't know, like is this my mind, like can this be? And I always say, it doesn't matter. Let's just go with it. Let's see what's up.
Yeah.
And sometimes we are too much in the mind, and that's also okay. And as we practice, I certainly on myself know started to understand when is it coming from my mind and when it's coming from my core self. I
Mhm.
had this question for the longest time. How do I know when is it coming from my intuition or when is it coming from my fear-based mind? Because sometimes it's very hard to distinguish, and only each of us can know the difference, right? So that's what I wanted to say about the doubt thing and imagining. And then you kept mentioning like chords or things that other people said to us, when we're feeling something. But when I did a session with you, I was feeling great. I didn't really see what I was missing in my life. And when you showed me this disconnection from the universe that I kind of blocked myself to contain, to not go too much in the sky or too grounded, like that's when the shift happened. But I didn't feel that something was wrong. I was just like, I'm curious to try energy healing. I'm always looking into other modalities to see. Actually, for me, it's really fascinating to see how other modalities have so much similarities. And when I was younger, I was so much into religion, like just studying religion. I was never religious, but it was just fascinating for me to see how such different religions at the core have the same concepts. And the same with therapy for me. Like even now, when you described about this whole unburdening process, that's what we do in IFS as well. It's you first unburden and then you invite something in to fill that space. So that was something fascinating too, how it's the same principles. And that's how it's a good thing if you see that it's like across all the most ancient traditions of healing, you have the same patterns, and it's like, okay, that they have something here. And parts work, unburdening, it has been like at some form or another in so many modalities. And yeah, so what do we do when we feel okay? We don't feel like something is burdening us, and we just want to expand to that another level, connecting to the higher power, to our angels, to our guides, really embodying that mission. Because that's what I got from you, was to really embodying even more my connection to my angels, to my higher power, and to my mission, what I came to do here in this earth.
Yeah, that's a wonderful, wonderful question. One of my favorites, actually, because I truly, deeply believe that we all have this connection to the divinity around us. And the more that we practice tuning into like what's in our energy field, the more we'll find things. Because what happens is, maybe say as like a child, I was overwhelmed by my connection with, maybe I was really connected to the earth or really connected to the higher realms. And so I was overwhelmed and I blocked myself. And then I spent my whole life with that block. And so I don't know any other way. I don't know what something else feels like. So you almost don't know what you're missing, right? But the more that we sit with like this energetic practice, and it doesn't have to be long, you could do 5, 10 minutes in the morning, on the weekends, whatever feels good to you. Um, the more we start to tune in, the more we start to notice the things. And it's like, oh, you had an intense conversation with the group of friends and you walk away and you're instantly like, oh, I love them. I'm going to send all that back. Like that fear wasn't mine. Like you start to, instead of carrying it with you for the rest of the time. And so it's really interesting how that starts to happen. Also, if we want to try to recognize the bigger thing, not the bigger things, but the things that, maybe we've had for a long time and are harder to connect with and see that are there, there's kind of two things that I would say. One, I am such a believer that we are our own healers. We are all divine. We all have the ability to be our own healers. I also am a big believer that we're all put here together on the earth for a reason. Like we can, yes, be our own healers, but also it's so incredible to be able to hold space for each other. And something that I teach a lot in my workshops and a lot of my students notice is that it's so much easier to do something for somebody else sometimes than it is to do it for ourselves. And so it can be really beautiful to have somebody hold space for you. But the reason why it's so much harder to do it for yourself, which brings me to my second tip, is that the doubt is like if I see it on somebody else and I'm like, I could still doubt myself, but I'm going to at least share it with them what I see. And then when they're instantly like mind blown and they're validating for me what I experienced with them, because we can do this for each other too. It's like, I think it's like some people have stronger empathic abilities than others, but that doesn't mean that the people that don't have the strength don't have the ability to do it and they don't have the ability to grow. We all have the ability to grow super connected empathically. It's just that sometimes we start in different places or our childhood allows us to grow in different ways. And so, we can still tune in and practice and raise that up if we want to, or shut it down if we're like, that's too much. But so it's really easy for me to feel something on somebody else too. Also, because when they validate it, I'm like, oh, I feel like this deep sadness in you and maybe some fear around finances. And they're like, that is literally exactly what I'm going through. What that does is that builds confidence in me. It's like, oh, I'm not crazy because just like, if I tell somebody that I'm a psychic, they're instantly like sometimes writing me off as they're like, ooh, woo, woo, which that's cool. No problem. You can live your truth in any way we decide. Um, but then when those things happen to us and we're like, oh, I'm feeling something energetically, I feel like my dad is stuck to me or my brother said something, and I'm like carrying this fear now after we had this conversation. It's like, is it my fear or is it his fear? And so it's when we start to connect with these things, it's so like we just instantly doubt ourselves. We're like, oh no, like I can't be special. I can't have these abilities. This doesn't exist. But again, what if we just try if it does? Um, and so if you're specifically for like, if you feel like you have blocks from above or below, because, I'm sure a lot of people, if you haven't, you have 7 chakras in your body, if you haven't heard that, energetic vortexes. And so we're bringing energy in from above is one channel and we're bringing energy in from below the heavens and earth. And also you're kind of bringing in energy from everywhere, but these are our two main sources. So it's a great practice to just sit and feel like, can I connect with like energy from above? If I imagine light of any color, pick your favorite color, coming down into my body and feeling me, can I feel anything? And especially if you're already feeling like you've noticed the other sensations, like, oh, I removed that and I felt that shift, but I'm not feeling this, I would maybe send attention to like, what do you feel up here? Do you feel numbness? Again, numbness is a feeling. And, you know, you can instantly be like, I'm going to just try to remove whatever that numbness is. But if we don't get to the core of what's causing it, it can come right back. So you can do that and open yourself. I try to open myself to energetic channels gently because it can be a lot to let it rush in. And it's again just setting intention. I put the intention of just gently opening this. I'm asking the universe or the earth to just slowly bring energy into my body. And you can even like sit and work with your different chakras just by sending attention to them and allow those to move more. Um, but yeah, by not looking at the root of what was causing this numbness, we're bringing it's going to come back. So it's nice to kind of remove it, ask the things to come in gently if we like. But then like sit with that. I love to sit with it in meditation. I also think journaling is an incredible practice, talking to somebody, anything, and just be like, contemplate however works for you, whatever questions come to you. Like, why would I be numb? Does anything happen in my life or my childhood that made me disconnect from whatever I believe is the heavens, or made me afraid of it, or made me want to block myself from it?
Or just
Uh,
ask the numbness what it has to say. And when you ask, it just, you know, like it may sound crazy if you do it for the first time, but and I like to do it to suggest to people who are just starting out to do it on paper because then you kind of write the question and then just start
mm,
writing the answer, and it slows things down for you to catch it.
yeah.
And I feel like if we ask, we really get the answer. And you mentioned confirmation, and I think that's a big one because for most of my life I've been feeling things, but I was like, oh, maybe it's just me. But when we got together with my partner and I started sharing with him these things, he's like, oh yeah, I feel that too. And we kind of confirming each other's experiences. And before, when I would meet someone and I would have the feeling of something is off, or I would go to an event, I definitely noticed that when I was in Bali, I would go to some events and I'm like, whoa, that's really not right. And at first I wouldn't trust my intuition and I would stay and I would come back home and I'm like, that was so, I feel so not myself. And because I got all of this, information and all of this energy from others, and people too would sometimes come for healing and releasing, and they release a lot of that energy. So it's very easy to catch it if you're a sensitive person.
Yeah.
And when I started sharing that with my friends, like, oh, we went together to this event, but nobody shared that it was weird. And I started sharing, like, this was so weird. Like, everything looked good, but internally it felt so weird. And then my friends who were at that event, they're like, no way, you felt that too? And I remember the first time that happened, and I was like, okay, I really can feel something. It's not just in my head because everybody else at that event, well, my friends that I talked to, felt that too because clearly some people were enjoying it and I was like maybe it's just me, but when I talked to more people I got that confirmation. So it's also useful if you don't have the practice buddy, you can practice it in your daily life and see. Yeah, a lot of times if you're what I do with myself, if I meet with someone and then I start feeling sad or something is off, I ask myself, is this mine or is it theirs?
Yes.
And again, that's a like who's going to answer that? But you get the answer. If you ask, you get the answer. And it says,
Yeah.
oh, no, it's theirs. And immediately as I get the answer, I can release it. And
Mhm.
I feel so much lighter. And it sounds so woo, but I actually just remembered now that I was doing this for the past like few years without realizing that I'm doing it. But I just like, is this mine or is it theirs? And just releasing that. Just, I think the quality of our questions form the quality of our life. So just asking like, okay, numbness, what do you have to say to me? Okay, sadness, is it mine or is it that person's? What's up? And yeah, that's beautiful. Very powerful practice. So it's been almost an hour that we're talking. That's crazy. What do you feel is still that you want to share? Something that you haven't shared?
Yeah, I think just two quick things is one is a really fantastic practice is testing the intuition. I'll even like, be driving. I'll be like, should I go left or right? The interesting thing about the intuition is that your mind always wants to argue the other way. Usually your mind will tell you one thing. So if you're feeling like you're getting a left, but your mind's like, but I'm supposed to go right, my house is right, it's just fun to practice because you start to hear it more. You're like, oh, okay, I can hear this voice inside of me. And then you just one day you're like, I have a little extra time. You go left, and then you end up like randomly at a print shop and you run into this friend you haven't seen in like 7 years, and you're like, how did this? He's like, how did you even know I was here? And then you're validating yourself. So that can be a fun way to play. Um, Also, again, just being aware that we all can doubt ourselves so much. And that there's nothing, wrong with us for doing that, but just maybe stay open to like, am I doubting myself? And kind of keeping that a constant question. I love what you said about the quality of our questions, um, creates the quality of our life, or forgive me, something like that.
Yeah.
But there was something else I wanted to say, but it's gone. So maybe it wasn't. Oh, I was going to say too, just a reminder too of just, and even asking you, like, in these experiences where you're questioning, is this mine or is this the other person's? And you send it back to them, like, how does it feel after getting to send that back? Or how does it feel after like intentionally removing these weights off of yourself and things like that?
Was that a question?
Yes, yeah, sorry, that was a question for you. Yeah.
For me, it's immediately, as soon as I understand that this sadness is not mine, that I picked it up, like, I don't even have to do any conscious sending back. Immediately, I feel like, oh, I feel like myself again. So just that acknowledgement of like, oh, that's actually not mine. And in IFS, I work a lot with legacy burden, something that we got from our ancestors. And sometimes it's such a big burden that like when I or my clients release, we just collapse because we're lifting this for so long. It so immediately feels so much easier. But I think you're right about saying that we should always test how we feel. And the same happens when we're communicating with our angels, our guides, our true self, is to always see what is the feeling tone that the message is coming with. If it's with judgment or any like anger, it's like, it's for sure not your spirit guides. Like they only come with love and true compassion. And that's how you know always that you're in your true self when you're doing, sessions, when you're just living. And my whole goal is about empowering people to live in their true self as much as possible. And that is the state of compassion, of curiosity, calmness, presence, and removing all of the other blocks that are not ours, all the practices that you shared, helps us stay in the true selves because we're not carrying any extra stuff.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
So
And and the last question I always ask all of my guests is, what is vitality to you?
ooh, I love that question. Wow. Well, forgive me, the Balinese lizards are making noises, sunset over here. Vitality, I feel like it's kind of a layered thing for me, but I think to keep it simple, I think sometimes vitality can have a negative connotation almost because it's like, oh, to stay young and energized. When I really think that every moment of life is a blessing, no matter how old you are, no matter how much energy you have in that day, that moment, it's like just really sitting with ourselves and having respect for, the moments we need rest, lay. It's like rather than pushing and pushing. But vitality really feels like, for me, something that is morphed into a definition that I'm sure is not something we would find in the dictionary, but it's a bit more of like that energy source, that life source that we can stay connected to. Um, and allowing ourselves to ebb and flow. We can always call in more life source. We can always align with a different frequency, but also our bodies are such magical things, such magical living things, and to respect our energy source, to respect how we feel in all moments. And so, yes, I keep it a regular practice, the energy work. Um, but also I'm respecting myself, my energy. I'm not like instantly judging myself for feeling heavy. I'm not instantly trying to fight feeling tired and like call more energy in. I'm not always removing. Like it's having that balance of being like we are divine beings and we're humans. And being a human is also has its divinity. Um, but giving space for both, giving space for calling in the extra energy, removing the things that no longer serve us. And also, like, if I want to eat chocolate cake and lay in bed and be tired and absorb a movie, which maybe like puts an energy on me or something, like, I'm just going to enjoy that. And that's just a choice. And so for me, vitality is more about respecting the ebbs and flows of the energy based on what feels good to you intuitively. Never, I'm not necessarily indulging one way or the other, but what keeps that energy flow in all aspects, just like our emotions. Every emotion is meant to be, every energy is also has its purpose. And so it's like, you know, making sure we're not people pleasing and carrying more than we need to, or being hard on ourselves, or ignoring traumas or things that, you know, are just weighing us down, but also not judging ourselves for having those things and not trying to like push them away. It's like we're also allowed to have love and space and compassion for ourselves. And actually, when we do that, something incredible happens. We just naturally flow energy more into ourselves in the perfect moment, the moment it really it's meant to be. So, yeah, I know it's kind of a different answer, but I'm sure that's why it's fun to ask different people.
I was listening to you and I'm like, wow, this was so needed after this episode, especially because we talked about removing and coming into alignment and reminding that we're human and that it's okay. Like, yes, we can choose to live in our true selves however much time we want, but sometimes we need to be just human and not beat ourselves over that, we're having a luteal phase and we don't want to go anywhere, do anything, talk to anyone, and just want to eat ice cream all day. Like, okay, whatever makes you feel good. And it's really like the judgment part and the compassion part are so critical of remembering that, especially with social media, I feel it's so easy to feel like everybody is living perfectly all the time. They're super tidy. They cook themselves all the time. Picturesque meals. They work out every day. They have the best relationships. They're living the life. And then sometimes I like look in the mirror in my like bathrobe and hair all over the place, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what's up? And then I'm like, okay, actually, Elena, you're human. That's okay. It's your life and your life only. You choose if you're okay with that or not. And actually, just by me pushing myself to be perfect, to always have a clean house, that is what is creating all the disturbance and all the sadness and like all the negativity, actually. But if just I'm embracing, like, there's a few plates in my kitchen, so what? To really embrace that. So thank you so much that you finished it with that. So vitality for you, as I understand, is that flowing of whatever is, allowing it, moving with it, and really like kind of like flowing with life, and especially for women, flowing with our cycle and not pushing.
Yeah. And I love to try to enjoy it too. If I'm on my cycle and I'm feeling anger activated, I'm like celebrating it. Or if I'm binge watching a series and eating chocolate, I'm like, oh man, this is so delightful. I try not to indulge constantly every day, but I just want to enjoy all of it, all aspects of it. And I think that for me, that is the purpose of life. Just to be, just to have existence, just to experience life and to enjoy it, all parts of it. So,
yeah. If we're doing it consciously, because a lot of times we're running away from something uncomfortable, and that's when we feel guilty. I have that a lot of times when I need to make a big decision. I'm making today, and I was going on YouTube to turn on some like just background music, and I ended up scrolling on YouTube Shorts. And after I got off of them, that's when I felt like, okay, now I feel like there's some judgment coming in, because I knew that this was not a conscious choice of I'm going to entertain myself, but this was a distraction. I was escaping. I was not meeting with something. So for me, the real power in life is to meet with what is happening. And if I'm choosing something, I'm choosing it consciously. So yeah, I think that's also something that we all could work on doing more in our lives, that conscious choice of, okay, do I really want to scroll now for half an hour? And if so, what am I avoiding? And meeting with that before the scrolling, or saying, okay, I'm putting this on hold for 5 minutes and I'm going to do the scrolling if you really want to do the scrolling. But normally that's like with all the other like bad habits, smoking, emotional eating. When we presence the need to go emotionally eat, to smoke, and really sit in our bodies, normally like it subsides after we give it some time and we nourish it. And we say to ourselves that it's nothing so bad and we don't have to make the decision right now, because I was avoiding making the decision. So I'm like, I will just do something else instead of making that decision. But if I just put my attention there and like, okay, you don't have to make a decision right now, that's when it eases off.
Very beautiful. Great reminder, for sure.
Thank you, Heather, so much. So happy that our paths crossed in Bali and I got to know you, and that we still keep the connection online. Really, one of those gifts that Bali gave me is definitely people like you that I just randomly met and got to nurture into a friendship. Thank you for listening to the end. It shows you really care about your well-being. And if you're enjoying the show, then rating, subscribing, and sharing with a friend would really help the show to grow. And since I'm not a big fan of mindless consumption of information, I really want to encourage you to solidify your learning by writing down key takeaways from this episode and sharing either on social media or with your friends. And lastly, I love connecting with you guys, so please come say hi to me on Instagram at Elena Kundro, and if you're interested in working one-on-one with me, exploring all parts of yourself, then feel free to reach out to me to see if I have any spots available. Until next time!